Hey everyone, this is Mike Dunn, and you are listening to Rethinking EDU. We are in our second season here talking about the power of networks. I hope that you listened to our last couple episodes, one with Dr. Chris Unger from Northeastern University and one with Teacher Powered Schools' own Dion Jackson. And tonight we are here with Bruce and Joy, who I will introduce in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to say what's up to my co hosts. There's only two of you. Julie is not with us right now. So, Matt and Janine, how are you?
Hi. Great. Good. I have no complaints. I've got a roof over my head, plenty of food, and my kids are well entertained with playing Fortnite. So it's all good.
Awesome. Awesome. Matt, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Just excited to be here tonight and to talk about these networks and be inspired.
Yeah, I agree. We've had a really, interesting couple of guests in our last couple episodes learning about some pretty innovative networks, particularly with teacher-powered schools, and then all that Dr. Unger brought to the table. If you haven't listened to the episode, he plugs all sorts of interesting places that are doing really great work in education. And as I mentioned before, we're here with Joy and Bruce this evening. And Joy, let's start with you. So you're the president of the Southeast region of PAMLE, right? Which is the Pennsylvania Association for
Yes.
Middle Level Education. I could go on and on about all the things that you've done. I'll let you talk about some of those. But one thing I want to highlight is you have a book out, Sharing Mindsets.
I do, yes. I recently published a book I co-authored with a local superintendent who was a childhood friend of mine, and it's the subtitle is Sharing Mindsets Where Classrooms and Businesses Meet. And it's a book of wisdom and anecdotes for teachers, but it's also crosses over with corporate world. So leaders in the corporate world or in organizations in the general Philadelphia region chimed in on the messages, and then we blended those messages for the benefit of teachers mainly, but like I said, also leaders or really at any level in a company that has responsibilities, for other people and trying to build relationships.
That's really cool. I need to maybe buy a copy of your book, actually. Sounds like it has a lot to do with what my dissertation topic is going to be on. Yeah, yeah. I'll let you know if I pick up a copy. And our other guest tonight is Bruce. And Bruce, you also are affiliated with PAMLE, and you were a school principal and a school teacher, and all of those things. Recently retired from all of those positions. And what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm also the director of Schools to Watch for Pennsylvania, and that has kept me really busy over the last couple of years. But with
Yeah,
this
okay.
pandemic, everything's been canceled, so I have a lot of free time right now. Uh, I've also done some consulting with some schools. We've been working with some schools out in the northwest of PA and in western Pennsylvania, but everything has died down. So right now, I'm just doing a lot of work outside my yard. I'm not got a big yard and have a lot of work to do, so it's been keeping me busy.
Sounds awesome. Get you out from behind the Zoom conferences and into some dirt, right? Uh, well, so I want to start with you, Joy, just for a quick minute, and then we'll get over to Bruce for some more introductions. So, Joy, tell us a little bit about how you became a member and I guess now the president of the Southeast region of PAMLE.
Sure. I think there's value in sharing that. I 25 years of teaching middle school. It goes in waves, so to speak, where some years you have amazing classes that you never want to leave, and other years you have classes where you're wondering when June is coming. And that's just the nature of it. We all went through school. We could all say the same thing about classes that maybe we were in or the classes that graduated around us, that they all kind of took on personality, so to speak. And the particular class I had about 5 years ago was really a struggle. Every day it was really challenging, and I tried to figure out: did I want to leave the profession? Did I want to elevate into an admin position? Or I just needed to do something else. And that something else is pretty much what led me into getting involved with Schools to Watch and PAMLE. So I decided to diversify myself so that when I got up every day, I didn't just solely think about going into the classroom. I had many other things to think about. And that was probably the best decision I ever made. I would probably say that it saved my teaching career. And as much as that sounds odd that I became busier and then loved my job more, that's actually what happened though. But it was because I was focusing too much on doing the job and not really recognizing that it's your entire life that supports your job and vice versa. So um, through my principal suggesting that I go up for the Schools to Watch training with Bruce, and then through networking and meeting people there, I ended up getting on the local board for PAMLE in the Southeast region. And just by nature of movement of people, it wasn't too long that the president position opened up, and it was partly because our president moved up to the state board. I ended up taking over. And my goal was to make it fun. I just wanted people to come. And I know Janine and Julie, they hate when they miss a meeting. And it's either the really good food at the restaurant or the conversation or both. Um, so that's honestly how I got started professionally with PAMLE. Was some encouragement on the behalf of the professionals I work with, but mostly that there was a void I needed to fill. And again, wasn't that I wasn't busy enough, just not diversified enough.
Sure, sure. And Bruce, can you chime in for a second here? How did you get involved in PAMLE? And also, can you just give us like the 5 second version of what PAMLE actually is, so our listeners can better understand what a middle level education network is?
The Pennsylvania Middle School Association, or Pennsylvania Association for Middle Level Education, is for middle schools, and it's strictly just middle schools, and it's a collection of principals and teachers from across the state. We have probably 130 institutional members, which equates to thousands of members, because once you're institutional, your whole building becomes a member of PAMLE, and it's an opportunity for people to network with one another. We provide PAMLE, we provide staff development in each of our regions, as well as a state conference where people can come together, present their ideas, share their ideas, and network. And that's how I got involved. I became a principal. They sent me to a conference down in Nashville, Tennessee, and I met someone down there that was involved with the national organization, and I got involved. And that's how I got involved with the Pennsylvania Association back in 1992, 93. I've been with this organization for a long time. It's a it's an organization which brings passionate middle level people together, and that's the key. When middle school is all about relationships. It's about making relationships with the teachers, making relationships with the kids, and when you're around passionate people that love what they're doing, it gets exciting. That's what PAMLE is all about. You know, sort of a five. That's a quick message on what it is, but it's about relationships, which are so important.
Which is perfect because we're talking about connecting with people and being able to network. Um, so Bruce, I was wondering if you could also tell us a little bit about Schools to Watch and how that plays into PAMLE and like what's the connection there.
Well, I've been involved with Schools to Watch since we started. I was with a group of 4 people that wrote an application for Schools to Watch back in 2005. Uh, because Schools to Watch is a program of the National Forum to Accelerate Middle Grades Reform, and Pennsylvania is one of 17 states that has an active Schools to Watch program. So it's based on 4 domains of academic excellence, social equity, development, responsiveness, and organizational structures, which brings it all together, and then 37 criteria, all based on best middle level practice. So, so that's how we got involved in this Schools to Watch, and it's a great program in the sense of recognizing all schools, and that's why we got involved. This isn't just for schools that have really great academic scores. This is a program that is for any school that is showing improvement. If they can show 3 years of growth, no matter where that growth is, they're eligible as a Schools to Watch school. And the other piece which we truly like about that is that it's a 3-year designation, because it's all about continuous improvement. It's continually getting better. Education has changed so much, and even the last 5 years. And it's not like once you get this award, you're a Schools to Watch forever. You're only Schools to Watch for 3 years, and you have to reapply to be redesignated again. So that's what this is all about, and that's the important piece about Schools to Watch.
And I would agree that I think that key piece right there of being able to, that it's just like a 3-year designation, and that you're constantly on this trajectory of growth. I know that when we were designated as a school to watch, that being able to connect with all these other schools that were doing some really awesome things was amazing. Like, to be able to go into those schools and see what the teachers were doing and share best practices and connect with them has been a huge benefit, not only for us as individual professionals, but for the whole school as an organization. It's been awesome.
I would say that both you and Julie and Joy have all been on site visits, and we can actually offer Act 48 credit to teachers for those site visits. But I would steal stuff when I was still a principal and going to these schools. I would bring stuff back to my own building, and that's a great professional development opportunity for teachers that are on these site visits when they go into these different schools, because they're all different. It's all based on the criteria. So you could have two schools to watch schools that might be very different because they address the criteria in a way which best suits their demographics within their building. So, and that's a really important piece of that. And I encourage teachers to take pictures of bulletin boards and to talk to teachers, and that's really critical. And that's one of the best things about this is sharing best practices. And within the National Forum Network, there's over 650 schools to watch schools designated, and every one of them has a link on the National Forum website. And part of this is connecting schools with schools. So it's an opportunity for, if you have something going on here in Pennsylvania and you see a school in California that's really cool, you can contact them. And part of this process is, they're going to call you back and they're going to get back in touch with you, and they're going to share what they do. That's a real critical piece. And that's important within this process.
Let me just ask Joy a question, but before I do, Janine sort of gave a teaser earlier, and we didn't get the answer to it. She said we should know who wrote the foreword of your book.
Oh,
Yes, you would like this, Matt.
yes. Ron Jaworski wrote the foreword.
There you go. You got Jaws writing the foreword.
Yes.
Shut up. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like if you have Jaws writing the foreword, I can only imagine who's in the book. So I'll
Yes.
check it out.
Yes.
Right.
But let me ask a question, and we'll start with Joy, and then Bruce, if you want to chime in as well. But in what ways does PAMLE go about supporting specific schools in the work that they're doing?
I think, as Bruce had mentioned, the big piece is the availability of best practices being offered, not even solely by PAMLE per se, meaning the board, but mostly by its members. So when we host regional and state conferences, along with different leadership institutes and like a summer academy that we do, just getting teachers out there teaching teachers. That's a huge piece of how we support specific schools all over Pennsylvania. And the conversations, I mean, I have to say the most valuable thing about it are the conversations that you have when you just go to any event, even if you're just, getting lunch with someone or relaxing before a session. Those are just invaluable pieces of information that we don't get time in a school day as educators to really have those enriching conversations. And Panley supports schools in that way, in that they offer platforms for us to get together with colleagues and really embellish who we are as teachers for the benefit of the middle level kids.
And the key to that, I would just say, and the key to this is when you're looking at PAMLE, these are all middle school people. Not everybody can teach at this level. Some middle school kids will drive a lot of people absolutely crazy. You have to have a certain personality to teach these kids, and it's important to be surrounded by people that have a passion for middle level, and you can just learn so much just talking to people. That's a real positive of this whole thing.
Yeah, it is funny that you're talking about that, Bruce, because I couldn't agree with you more that being a middle school teacher is a true calling. I've taught elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids, college kids, inside, outside, on top of a horse, in a foreign country, in the water. And of all of these experiences that I've had, I'll tell you, teaching eighth grade history is probably one of the most challenging experiences I've ever had. And it takes a certain kind of teacher and a certain kind of individual to really meet the needs of that group of unique individuals. And I would add to that the siloing of teachers and the feelings of siloing of teachers are very real all around the country. So to bring together a bunch of teachers, as you're talking about, who are working with a group of students that require a unique skill set, unique point of view, and also um, to bring those individuals together outside of their silos, and as Joy, you were saying, to really get them to interact with one another, to teach one another, and Bruce, like you said, to share best practices. That's really, really invaluable. I i i couldn't think of a better use of a network, really. So I would love to hear just a little bit from like a network perspective, and either um Joy or Bruce, you can talk about this. Is what are some of the big challenges that you guys are seeing these days at the middle level, that you think that the network is trying to help teachers really get at?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that I see is PDE, in the sense of putting a lot of baggage on these teachers, and some of the things that they have to teaching to a test is awful. It's not all kids learn the same way, yet every test is exactly the same and everybody has to test the same, and that's a challenge for schools when you have kids that learn so differently. And that's hard, and everybody struggles with that. And a good probably a good example of a good network is, when you're struggling, sometimes you think you're the only one, but when you hear it from 50 other people that are having the same issues with the same kinds of kids, it's really important to talk, and that you can learn from one another, and that's important. But I think these challenges today are just a lot of mandates that are put on by the state, and these tests are awful. And I see a lot of schools that are dropping great programs so they can add more math. It's the key isn't not in adding more math; it's adding different math. You have to do something differently, or you're going to get the same results. But too many people think, they're going to add a double math period, a double language period, and that's going to make the biggest difference. And they're going to cut out their music programs, or their limit the phys ed that they have in the schools, or their tech ed classes. And some kids live for those kinds of things, and that's what middle school is about. Kids are trying to find out who they are, and they need to experience a lot of things. And it's a shame that they're cutting some of the best things out of these kids.
Yeah, we don't want kids to hate school, right? That's the big thing. Is if I always say that a social studies teacher, that's my background, our job is to help encourage students to love to learn anything, right? And I think that that really starts at the lowest grades and then continues on really critically in the middle levels. um Joy, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. What do you see some of the challenges being?
I think from being a teacher, daily in the classroom and in the buildings, I think the biggest challenge is the teachers are just feeling completely maxed out. And it partly comes from the things that Bruce was just mentioning. And it partly comes from just the overall stressors of the job. And I think we have to, as a network, we have to somehow come alongside teachers and encourage them to get in the building every day and be their best for kids, because we're really hurting kids because the teachers who are the front lines can't be their finest. And I mean that emotionally, not instructionally per se, because I feel like the teachers will teach anything. They all can handle the instruction. It's the art of it that becomes a challenge because we're just not emotionally able to do it. In terms of being healthy, a healthy mindset. It just isn't there because of the burdens. You know, so I feel like our network does a really good job, and again, Bruce partly alluded to this, but of getting people out and saying, "Hey, I'm having that trouble too," or here's an idea. This is something that works for me. So that whole kind of lifting up the spirits of the teacher is partly what I feel like our network is responsible for doing, and more than happy to do to help people out. Just give them an outlet.
If I were to if I were to look at this pandemic, and probably one good thing about this is, with the kids being at home, is some of these kids are now playing. They're now interacting with their parents. Some of these kids really need that because they don't play. They don't that executive functioning piece is lacking in a lot of these
Hmm.
kids. They don't know how to play. And maybe this is really, really going to help that. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, down the road how these kids actually end
Yeah.
up.
Well, yeah, and there's really been a great opportunity right now for educators that are still teaching or you've moved to online, but it's also an opportunity to do things differently, right? Like there is no state testing right now, like don't teach to the test. You can. What do the kids want to learn? I mean, we started. I think I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts, but just we asked the kids, what are some things that you wanted to learn? They wanted to know things about like how do you take care of your house? Like how do you find things that what do you need to know to be a homeowner, or how do you take care of your car and
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Skills that kids need to know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
16 is right around the corner, man.
Everything they need. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So we've been having fun with it. So with PAMLE, what I'm curious, like, is there anything in the works right now? Like, I know obviously with the pandemic, there's a lot of things that probably got put on the back burner. I'm sure you were having some schools to watch visits and getting ready for some celebrations, but what are some of the goals, or what are some things that PAMLE is currently working on?
So I think we're trying to recognize and also support the interest in webinars for staff. And I don't know that is obviously somewhat driven by the pandemic, but I feel like that's something that's come alive even more so recently, just on its own because of the interest of people in liking that setup. They like that avenue of learning. So I know we talked about that today. That's something I think we're working towards, and again, just working towards listening to our members. I think we're trying really hard to stay connected. Bruce does a great job of communicating via email and keeping up with our web page and listening to what the members want. So we don't just put a conference together just to say, hey, this is a middle level conference, same as every year. We really try to base the threads on what's going on in the schools, and that's why the schools to watch feeds so nicely into our board. And we can all share out those different ideas, but we try to weave it all together so that it's meaningful. And I feel like we're always working on that, just responding to the needs of the middle level educators in the schools.
I would say when she's talking about the webinars with AMLE, we've partnered with them on these webinars. So we're now able to provide Act 48 credit for any Pennsylvania teachers that attend any of these webinars, which has been huge. None of the other states have done that. That's really important because AMLE used to offer webinars every Tuesday, and I've attended a bunch of them from 4 to 5. Now they're offering sometimes 2 or 3 a week, and they've been a wide variety of topics. There's a lot right now in this social emotional learning with kids, and what it's going to be like when they get back here in the fall, if they get back in the fall, and the struggles that they're going to have. So there's a lot right now with that social emotional learning, and I think we're going to see more of that within the next couple of months. And we'll try to stay on top of that. We're struggling with the same benefits with schools to watch. We just did a huge survey to our principals across the country, and it's interesting what they're coming back with, and a lot of it is the social emotional learning component. We're going to try to put things together with that as well.
It's great. You've mentioned how you work and relationships are just so important, and I can definitely relate to that. Just wanted to ask a sort of specific question. Can you recall any specific experiences you had, like working with different schools or different principals? I know I might be putting you on the spot a bit. That's why I'm trying to elongate the question and give you a couple moments to think about it.
Not answer. Go ahead.
So can you recall any times where you've interacted with people in your network, and through those relationships where you've seen just some really cool stuff happen? And I think the reason I'm asking that is because I think by you sharing that and giving us a glimpse, it will show us, one, the value of this network and the value of networks in general, and then two, will inspire us a bit, get us to think outside of what we're thinking. So if you have anything, I think
I can answer a couple of questions with that. One of the biggest things, when I was a principal, I was fortunate enough that our superintendent allowed us to send people out. I would send people out to conferences all the time. Even when the National Middle School Conference was in Philadelphia and was in Baltimore, my whole staff went to both of those conferences. we worked a year ahead of time. I got a staff development day built into the calendar so we could send them there. And we offered transportation if they wanted it. But the really cool thing when you watch it about when you see when a teacher presents and they present at a conference and just watch just the growth of that teacher and how they feel after they presented and they come back to school and they talk about it, especially when they get a lot of real positive feedback. That's a real plus, and that's huge in that sense. Uh, Another piece is with schools to watch. I'm just amazed at some of the schools when we go into a school and we go back to a school for a redesignation, the growth that that school has made. And we have a school that has been redesignated 4 times, and it's a really good school, and they're making such amazing strides. And the principal told me, he said, we like this process, and what we like about this process is every 3 years we have to reflect on our best practice. We need to look at what we're doing and look at what's going on today and look what we need to change. And there's a real value in that. That's a real positive. I get it's so great when you go to these schools and you see how they've progressed. I'll take Julie's school and Dean School in particular. A great little school, and it's supposed to watch is for any public school, a public charter school, anything, and they've done some really cool stuff that a lot of people could learn from. But people think, it's a charter school, we can't do it, and they're small. Absolutely, you can do it. You can do it at a different phase or a different level, and those are really cool things to see when you get back into those schools, and that's what I really like about this process.
We had so Julie and I actually presented at one of the conferences, and it was on our iSearch projects that we do, where our students work on independent research projects throughout the year. And we ended up having several people reach out, contact us, and they came and visited our school. They wanted to see the program and how it runs, and so it was great. We've made some really fun friends, through these conferences and just kind of sharing what we're doing.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about here. It sounds like the Schools to Watch program is really designed to kind of pump out coverage, which is seriously lacking. And we talked about that in the last couple episodes. Is who gets to know about these little schools like Julie and Janine's school that are doing amazing things, and like how do they get to know about these little places, right? If I didn't know where Solderton, Pennsylvania is, which I still am a little shaky that I know where it is. I'm not quite sure. If I didn't know where that was, or I wasn't looking for like interesting schools in Solderton, Pennsylvania, I would otherwise never ever know. And I feel like that's one of the values that you're pointing to here, Bruce, is that using something like the conference or the Schools to Watch as a tool to say, check out what Solderton is doing, or check out what, and I'm sure you and Joy could both just go down the list and say like, boom, this school, boom, this school, boom, this school are just doing cool things. And I've said for a while that um our vision of possibility of what school is not quite strong enough. We need to figure out a method for sharing more visions of possibility, to steal a phrase from the famous Chris Unger, to provide more visions of possibility for more schools so they can have aspirational goals and say, oh wow, I didn't know we could be teaching research in this way. And to whoever said it earlier, I didn't know that maybe we should think about doing math instruction a little bit differently.
Well, I agree with you that we have some very rural schools in PA. I drove to a school once. I thought I was going to drive off the side of the earth. We travel there. It's in the middle of absolutely nowhere. It's dark. We saw a moon shining over the road, and I had no idea where we were going. Uh, there's some really cool schools around this state of PA, but unfortunately, what you hear about the schools is when something goes wrong, the news media is all over it. You don't hear about the great stuff that goes on in the schools. There are so many good things going on in these schools, but we always hear about how bad schools are. Some phenomenal schools in Pennsylvania. There really are. And, we need to get the word out, and that's the tough part.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joy, maybe you want to touch on just some of the work that you're doing here in Southeast Pennsylvania in particular to, highlight some of the things that schools are doing around near us.
Um, Yeah, and I think we do that through our regional conference. Unfortunately, with a few different circumstances, the last couple years we've only had one regional conference that drew a lot of attendees, and we try to bring in, people that have different topic interest that we think again are going to be feeding into threads that are of interest to the teachers that are attending the conference. So that's mainly the one way that we do it, but I honestly think our board meeting is a critical piece because it becomes almost like a hangout, for lack of a better word, and I think I often present it as that, and it makes it relaxed and it helps all of us to share different ideas, and then we act as tentacles and we get out into our schools and we talk about the things that are going on in other schools. And in its simplest form, maybe that's the best way that we're able to communicate out, is to just network with each other and then use those conversations to start other conversations within the schools. And again, the conferences, when they're a go and when they're successful, are really great. And then getting people to present, and we often have people on our board that will say, "Well, I can't present, but I know someone at my school that's really good with advisory, and they would present." So doing those types of things, being very open is important, I think, in getting messages out so that you can start talking about what's happening in the schools.
Yeah. I'm curious, who are there other connections that PAMLE has? So PAMLE obviously is for the state of Pennsylvania, but then that's part of a larger for AMLE, right? I'm just wondering, like, are there other networks or other connections that PAMLE uh, has as well, or like how are they also like? Are there other affiliations or anything?
AMLE is the affiliate for the National Association, and each of the states has an affiliate, and we have a really strong affiliate in Pennsylvania, and we're very well respected by AMLE. We've actually uh, pioneered a number of programs for them, and great. We've been involved with Learning First in the past. Horse Man, we have a great partnership with Horse Man, uh, which is a insurance, and it was a company that was founded by teachers and works a lot with teachers in schools all around the country. And we have a really good partnership with them. Uh, we've worked with, we partnered at a conference for a number of years with the Principals Association of Pennsylvania. Did a joint conference in the summer. We did it for 3 years, and we brought the middle level component to the administrative conference, and which was always good. So, those are some of the partnerships that we've had.
Yeah, and I'm sure it probably changes throughout, over the years, like you mentioned. I think even PASAP was one of them, the one for a few years there. Um, yeah. So yeah. So how if somebody wants to join PAMLE, what do they do? How do they get involved?
If they go to the website, it's pamle.org. Uh, there's a membership piece there. They can join as an individual member. They could join when the school joins, it's an institutional member, and that includes every teacher that's in that building then, if they join as an institution. We always recommend dual memberships. We've created a dual membership with the national organization. And so if somebody joins as an individual dual member for AMLE, PAMLE, they have all the benefits of both organizations. And we have an institutional membership, which is a dual institutional membership as well. And but you join right on the website, and it's not really expensive. As I think the dual institutional membership, or the dual individual member for AMLE PALME, is, I think it's $89 or $81, something like that.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
bad at
that's
all.
super
It's not real
reasonable.
expensive. Yes, it's, as a principal, we look at, when you join the Principals Association, it's just like $700 or $800.
Mm.
If you're going to join a dual membership with AML PAMLE, I think it's like $315.
Hmm.
The two organizations. So it's not that bad. It's not expensive, and we give them a lot of stuff. We have a members only side of our website. Of like, Janine, you have a best practice, something that you really like. We have a link on our website. You go in, you can fill out the best practice. It goes into a database, and then people can go into the database and look at things. If something catches their eye, there's contact information there. They can contact the school and talk to them about the best practice. So
That's great. And Joy, if a person here in Southeast Pennsylvania, or just even thinking outside of Southeast Pennsylvania, wants to get involved in their like local affiliate chapter, what are some of the ways that you are offering teachers opportunities to get involved?
Well, I think to get involved in terms of attending our board meeting, which I think is the best way to get started with meeting people on the board, it's the easiest ways is like Bruce had mentioned to go to the website, and then there is a section for regions, and you can just pick the region that you're in, and it lists all of the board members. And I believe the emails are there at least for myself and the secretary. Um, and so that's one way to do it. And um, obviously it is tough. I mean, I have to say, if your school isn't a member of PAMLE, it's hard to know that there are different regional boards to know all about it. But I think that we're actually working currently on a newsletter that's going to start being published, and that is going to help a little bit more with splashing out, for lack of a better word, some of the highlights of what we're doing and trying to steer people and navigate them towards our web page where the greater detail is. So we are working on all of that. But a lot of it is word of mouth, and a lot of it is just people talking to other people. And like I said, when we get together at these larger conferences like the state conference, there's a lot of chatter about what's going on in the different regions. We make sure that we acknowledge what region we're from. So if you are from the Southeast region, then you can find someone else who's in that region and connect with them. But yeah, we welcome everyone to our board meetings, and we have definitely grown in the 5 years that I've been there, and in a very diverse way. I'm proud of the fact that we have several counties represented on the board, and it's fun. But again, we make it so that it's a place to converse and a place where people can get together and just kind of get to know each other, and have a safe, kind of fun environment to share about the celebrations and frustrations of the middle level.
Certainly, yeah. All right. Well, Matt, so we're getting into our last segment here about how this conversation has helped us rethink education. What are you thinking over there? What's going through your what's going through your brain as Bruce and Joy are talking?
Yeah, this has been great, and Bruce, Joy, thank you for taking the time to share your insights. And one of the things that there's a lot of stuff going on in my head right now, but one of the things is is the importance of relationships. And I think sometimes within education, we see past that. We see past that sometimes with our students, and we see past that as educators. And hearing you talk and hearing you talk about the significance of relationships and how important that is to build relationships with other people and to share best practices and to support and to sort of fuel this growth. But one of the foundational things is relationships. And to me, that's so sort of beautifully simple. And it's something that, to be honest, I'm very relational, but I've sort of neglected that within different spheres of education. So this has been really helpful, and it's really needed, like you've commented too, for middle school teachers, to fight that burnout and to be encouraged and to not get stale. So I could keep going on and on and on. The importance of relationships within education to fuel these powerful networks is something that's really going on in my mind right now.
I love it, Matt. And I would add that i- teaching is a funny job, right? You're in a classroom with students pretty much all day long. And there's a lot of relationship building that goes on between student and teacher pretty much all the time. And I often think about um, how the neglected part of school can sometimes be the relationships that are built between teacher and teacher, and then furthermore the relationships that are built between teacher at school A with teacher at school B who might be doing really similar work and encountering some of the same challenges. um, I think that that's what this conversation is making me remember and think
Mm.
about. We talk a lot about relationship building with students. We talk a lot about relationship building with teachers and maybe um, parents. But how often are we talking about building relationships teacher to teacher from building to building? And that's what I think PAMLE, in my view, in the light of this conversation, is really pushing me to think about. And I know, Bruce, I cut you off there for a second. I would love to
It's okay.
hear what you're thinking too.
Well, I know you had said something earlier about kids need to like to come to school.
Hmm.
It's critical, and that relationships helps that. Once you actually get to know these kids outside of a school setting, they'll trust you and they'll do anything for you. And it's those kinds of relationships that you need to build. And also another thing is, and we're finding it out today, even with all this homeschooling that's going on, teachers need teachers. They need the support of each other, and that's the value of networking. And sometimes you just don't close your door and teach. You need to work with your colleagues, and that's a value with middle school in the sense of teaming. Teaming done properly, teachers are interacting all the time, working with kids and working together, and that's so important. And don't test that. That's not something that is on a state test.
Yeah,
That's probably one of the most important things in schooling is building those relationships in order to be successful.
absolutely. Janine, what are you rethinking over there?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same line there with you, Mike. I was thinking not only like teacher to teacher, but just like the school to a school, and thinking outside of like the district. I think within the boundaries of the district, sometimes there's like cross connections that end up happening between teachers and within the buildings, but there seems to be sometimes like that mentality that like, oh well, I'm in this one district, so we can't ever socialize with those other people in the other district, kind of thing. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that we have to get away from that. That one, as from being a member myself of PAMLE, um, I've had huge benefits with being able to connect with other schools that are outside of our area. Um, and even ones that are down the street. So just bringing everybody together that these schools are sharing with other schools, um, it makes us all better. It goes back to that point that we made before that like we can do more together. We can do better things together than we ever could just alone, whether we're a teacher in the classroom or we're just a single school in the district.
Absolutely. Joy, what is this conversation making you think about?
um, I think I would just have to say a great word that I'm thinking of is grateful. I would never
Mm,
have met Bruce and gotten to know Bruce as a person, and all of the affiliations that he has and the people that I've met through him without getting involved in these boards. And again, I continue to, along with what you all are saying, and Janine was emphasizing about the need to see what other schools are doing. A lot of it is just you can't refresh yourself in any role in your life unless you're kind of aligning yourself with someone else who's supporting you. So if that's your family, maybe it's your spouse, but a lot of times in a school building, it's the teachers, and sometimes the teachers that are alongside of you in the hallway just maybe aren't enough. And you need to connect with somebody else who you can kind of have that conversation with to get some support. And it just I'm very grateful for that, and I tell everybody that that's very important to me from a professional standpoint, to be able to have, I call it a family. I've often told Bruce, like, that you guys are my second family, and that might be a strong word to use, but it is how I feel, and it is something that supports what I do every day. And I can go into school every day and think about the fact that I have somebody to call if I have a question. I can call, John Walsh over at Unionville if I'm stuck on something with my Google Drive. I do have people in my district, but you know what? I'm comfortable with John, and that's who I can go to because I have a different relationship with him through the board. So that piece is really important. Like, if I could just put kids aside for a second in my role, we talk about, though, the health of a teacher, and I feel like PAMLE does a great job of looking at the health of the teacher, and more so in the fall and even the last few years, it's just becoming critical.
yeah, and I would argue, especially right now, our third episode covered teacher self care in the time of COVID-19, and we invited a friend of ours, Fran Warren, on, and she's the founder of the Educators Room. If you guys get a chance to go check it out, just theeducatorsroom.com. they're a teacher voice amplifier through written media and video and podcasting as well. And shameless plug for myself, I've written for them for the past like 7 or 8 years, and they've been really pushing their teacher self-care conference, which I brought to my school this year as part of what they're trying to do to offer teachers as a way to encourage them to remind themselves that you're only as good a teacher as you are when you take care of yourself, and you're only a really amazing teacher when you're 100%. And that means that taking a day off every once in a while to be with your kids or to be away from the computer is just as important as being with your classroom kids and in the classroom. So we're in our last segment here, which is our plug. Everybody, I hope, has a plug. Who wants to start?
I would say, go to the PAMLE website. It's PAMLE.org. Go and check out the Schools to Watch page on that website. There's a lot of resources on there that anybody can access. You don't have to be a member. You can access the information. The rubric is still up on that. The criteria of Schools to Watch is up on that. It's a great resource. Then each of the schools that are Schools to Watch have a link to their schools. And if there's something that you like that they're doing, contact that school and ask them about a program that they do or something like that. I think it's a great piece, and it doesn't cost you a thing to do that. That would be my plug, is to check out that webpage and to go to that site.
Awesome. Janine, what you got?
I'm going with a book again.
Okay.
All right, so the book is called What School Could Be, and it's by Ted Dintersmith. And a really cool book. Just kind of, he had set out to go across the United States and visit all 50 states and try to really convince people that we need to reimagine education. And what he found is that there are innovative teachers that are out there all across the country, and they're doing extraordinary things, and just really bringing innovation into the classroom where you probably would least expect it. So it's really good book to check out. So again, it's called What School Could Be. And
Janine, I heard he's starting a network of networks called Go Boundless, which we may have touched on last week. That's awesome. Joy, what do you want to plug tonight?
So I'm actually going to I'm going to be the opposite of humble and plug my own book.
Yeah, you totally should.
There you go. You should.
Yeah, I actually had a podcast today about it with a guy. The podcast is called This Amazing Life. So I think it's coming out next week.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was a project I took on, like I said, when I was diversifying my life a little bit. And Dave Brown, who is an amazing, former member of our board, simply because he moved to Vermont, but he's doing amazing things with AMLE. So I can give a plug to AMLE.
Cool.
Yeah. In Vermont, so he actually wrote What Every Middle School Teacher Should Know. I believe he's working on the 4th edition of that with his co-author. Anyway, he encouraged me to write, so I wrote this book, and I love it because it is exactly a lot of the things that we've been talking about, the care of the teacher, because the book really is about the teacher as a person. And the first 7 chapters are about the self, and the second 7 are about relationships, and the third 7 are about the extension of the hand and the generosity of service, and the importance of blending those 3 components together to be successful in a classroom. But beyond that, we went out and sought out Greater Philadelphia leaders and contributors of companies, and we have representatives from the CEO of Wawa, Kind Bar's president, Chickies and Pete's CEO. We have a couple, Ron Jaworski, like we mentioned. Kevin Riley is a former Eagles player from the 70s. Bryn Mawr Hospital. There's just all kinds of Toll Brothers, all kinds of companies represented. And we asked them to blend their thoughts into the message so that we could see that the education and the corporate world are really not that far apart. We often see them in separate bubbles, but there's a way to blend them together. So they matched our messages, and it's really cool. And it was just a matter of going in and saying, this is important for a teacher. How does it matter to you? How would you support that? And they aligned with us in each of the messages. And it turned out to be a really cool, fun project. And they loved it, of course, because Ron Jaworski was in it, so take it from there, right? But it was fun. Yes.
Speaking of Ron Jaworski, Matt, what do you want to plug?
I will plug online voice recorder. It's a really cool, simple tool. You can utilize it on your web, so you don't have to download anything, or you could download the extension. And what's really nice about it is it works really nice with Google Slides. So it allows the student to be the creator, and maybe they could create their own podcast and put it on Google Slides, and then they could share as a project in the classroom.
Yeah, I just popped it open, and it's like the simplest app that I've ever seen. Just a big button in the middle of the screen that says record. And I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. So as we head on out, I'm going to plug Education Reimagined. They're I would say they're sort of like a policy think tank group, but they're also involved in mobilizing students and mobilizing educators to mobilize students to place learners at the center of education. Their whole thing is learner-centered schools, learner-centered teaching, and learner-centered curricula all across the country. They've been working on that with that vision in mind for a number of years now. And what I really love about what they're doing now is they're partnering with folks like Ted Dintersmith from Go Boundless and 100 to push forward this idea that school cannot be the same when we return after COVID-19 ends. It cannot, because it should not be the same. Needs to be more learner-centered. We need to start thinking about how we can help young people kind of self-determine their own futures, how to drive their own learning, and how to do all the things that, many of the schools on the schools to watch list are already doing, but maybe not enough schools are doing in the world. So check them out. You can go to education-reimagined.org. They're a terrific group. And I want to thank Bruce and Joy one more time for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure having you on. We really appreciate it. And to everybody listening to this podcast, I hope you will continue to listen. We've got some really great folks on the docket for future episodes. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning into this one. Catch you later.